Good evening. How is everyone? Thank you for joining. We'll build a little bit of an audience. Tonight, because of all the things that I have been reading lately and that have been occurring to me in the CO2 debate, which is not a debate, which really is just a machination of the right wing, okay? And good evening, Rebecca. I probably will hold off on some of the comments until after I finish this, because I do have a lot of material I want to go over. And for me, of late, it has been a bit difficult because I've been reading and watching these people that, you know, I really can't stand the word climate denier, okay? I really can't stand it. But I wanted to give a little history tonight on how it came to be where we are. And if you could share this, I think it would be great, because this is good material. And you all know that during the election, Bernie Sanders opened a lot of people's eyes, and he talked about the Koch brothers, and he talked about the dark money and all of these things that were happening behind the scenes. And a lot of it happened behind the scenes in climate change and the discussions about climate change. It really took me down a road, an activism road, that's actually gotten me here tonight. And where I am tonight is I'm going to talk a little bit about the skeptics, the climate people that don't believe it, the fossil fuel industry. And I'm going to start with a book called Dark Money by Jane Mayer. Dark Money, okay? This book opened my eyes to what was going on in our country. I knew that there were things and nefarious people behind the scenes. I knew that there were, you know, back from, I mean, I'm alive a long time. I knew that Dick Cheney was evil. I knew that there were all kinds of backdoor deals and all that. But I'm going to really not talk about that tonight. And I just want to. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to talk about the history of how we get to where we are. And hello, Mindy, where we get to where we are with the whole climate and CO2 and global warming is a hoax, or it doesn't exist, okay? And I'm going to start out from Dark Money. I'm going to start out some background. And it was 1988. And the American Petroleum Institute, along with several top oil industry executives, conservative think tanks, officials, they colluded on a secret plan to spend $2 million to confuse the press and the public about growing scientific consensus. Now, if you know before that, actually, the Republican Party was not so against the growing environmental movement. They were actually behind it, but it changed. And it changed with these think tanks, these Heritage and Cato and the Ayn Rand think tanks. And the plan, it called for recruiting skeptical scientists and training them in public relations so that they could act as spokesmen, thereby adding legitimacy and cover to the industry's agenda. And we are talking about the fossil fuel industry's nefarious agenda. The nefarious agenda that they had to basically keep on polluting and keep on spewing and keep on digging and keep on drilling. According to the Republican War on Science, the plan was the brainchild of William O'Keefe, a former chief operating officer at the American Petroleum Institute and a lobbyist for none other than ExxonMobil. And he became the president of the George C. Marshall Institute, a conservative think tank in Virginia. O'Keefe continued to lobby for ExxonMobil while heading the research center, described by Newsweek as a central cog in the denial machine. The think tank specialized in providing contrarian scientific defenses for dubious clients. Okay. Funded by the Scaife, Olin, and Bradley Foundations, among others. It had begun as a center for Cold War hawks, vouching for President Reagan's Star Wars missile shield. Remember that? The hawks, big hawks from the old days. But it expanded into debunking other scientific findings that could be construed as liberal or anti-corporate. Thus, it started a while ago, the corporate agenda, how we've become a plutocracy. And the fossil fuel industry is mired right in it to the very top. Money from threatened corporate interests, meanwhile, frequently funded the research. Leading the charge against climate scientists were two elderly retired physicists affiliated with the George C. Marshall Institute who had previously defended the tobacco industry. So they learned from the tobacco industry, which denied for how long that tobacco was bad for you. Fred Seitz and Fred Singer. As Naomi Oreskes and Eric Conway write in Merchants of Doubt, which is really a great book, the two Freds had been eminent physicists in their day, but neither had any expertise in either the environment or health. Yet for years, the press quoted these men as experts. What they were, in fact, expert in was converting a torrent of unseen funding into fighting facts and merchandising doubt, according to Oreskes and Conway. But for the fossil fuel industry, winning over public opinion was no easy feat. As the new millennium dawned, the general public was broadly in favor of environmental regulations. We wanted them. We saw that pollution was ruining the waters. We all saw that air pollution was making it unbreathable in some cities. It was obvious. But then the money got in the way. As late as 2003, over 75% of Republicans supported strict environmental regulations, according to polls. For the help on their public relations campaign in 2002, opponents of carbon regulations hired Frank Luntz, who warned that the environment is possibly the issue on which Republicans in general, and President Bush in particular, is most vulnerable. To win, he argued, global warming deniers had to portray themselves as persevering and protecting the environment. In his confidential memo, Winning the Global Warming Debate, which eventually leaked to the public, Lutz stressed as his number one point, the opponents of carbon regulations absolutely must not raise economic arguments first. In other words, telling the truth about their financial interest was a recipe for losing. So they lied. The key, he went on, was to question the science. You need to continue to make the lack of scientific certainty a primary issue in the debate, he advised, and it's still going on today. So long as voters believe there is no consensus about global warming within the scientific community, he said regulations could be forestalled. Of course, until Obama came along. He might have been Frack-Obama, okay, Barack Obama, but he did do things to protect the environment, although he had the weight of the fossil fuel industry against him. He had a company that was drunk and addicted to oil and gas. And there came the Marcellus boom, the shale boom, and fracking. So this guy said, the voters, as long as the voters believe that there's no consensus, global warming within the scientific community, it's going to be forestalled. Language that worked, he advised, included phrases like, we must not rush to judgment, and we should not commit America to any international document that handcuffs us. So, of course, that handcuffing has been seen and talked about in the Paris Agreement. And that's where President Trump today, 45, has gotten the narrative that it was a bad deal for the United States. But in the view of Michael Mann, whose scientific work soon became the target, he was a big target of climate change deniers. Lutz's 2002 memo served as a virtual hunting license. It basically said you have to discredit the scientists and create fake groups. It doesn't say engage in character assassination, but it was leaning in that direction. So all these fake groups were created. And this is where the Cato Institute, that libertarian think tank that Charles Koch funded, they put out a steady stream of reports like Apocalypse Not, Science, Economics, and Environmentalism, and a Climate of Fear. Why we shouldn't worry about global warming. A grant from Charles G. Koch Charitable Foundation, along with funds from ExxonMobil and the American Petroleum Institute, also helped pay for a most of it non-peer-reviewed study, claiming that polar bears, who were mascots of the global warming debate, were not endangered by climate change. Well, I'm not going to go on much in this one because there's a lot of information and a lot of the things that I have read. Now, this book, which is Naomi Klein, This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate. I'm going to give you a little bit from here. And stick with me because this is really good in education. I really want you guys to learn. I want you to understand the background. So Klein writes, but today there is a significant cohort of voters in many countries who care passionately, even obsessively, about climate change. What they care about, however, is exposing it as a hoax, being perpetrated by liberals to force them to change their light bulbs, live in Soviet-style tenements, and surrender their SUVs. For these right-wingers, opposition to climate change has become as central to their belief system as low taxes, gun ownership, and opposition to abortion. Which is why some climate scientists report receiving the kind of harassment that used to be reserved for doctors who performed abortions. In the Bay Area of California, local Tea Party activists have disrupted municipal meetings when minor sustainability strategies had been discussed. And it was kind of crazy in that time. And she goes on to talk about unthinkable truths, but the dirty business behind this whole thing that has made me talk about global warming and climate change and has brought me to realize the nefarious reasons that we have the situation we have today with our government and the deniers-in-chief cabinet, okay? It is. And some climate denial groups allege that CO2, it's only a fraction of trace gas in the atmosphere, and it has little effect on the climate. We know that is not true. The scientific consensus, as summarized by the IPCC's fourth assessment report, the U.S. Geological Survey, and other reports, is that human activity is the leading cause of climate change. Why is it so hard for people to understand? Why? Why is it for people that are actually brainwashed GMO sheep? They've been eating too many GMOs. They argue that global warming stopped recently, a global warming hiatus, which is not true, or that global temperatures are actually decreasing, leading to global cooling. These are just arguments based on short-term fluctuations, and they ignore the long-term pattern of warning. So I'm going to read to you the taxonomy of climate change denial. Stephen Ramsdorff described how media gave the misleading impression that climate change was still disputed within the scientific community, which it is not. So here we go. These are the different positions argued by climate change skeptics. And he called this the taxonomy of climate change skepticism. 1, trend skeptics, deniers who deny there is global warming and argue that no significant climate warming is taking place at all, claiming that warming trend measured by weather stations is an artifact due to urbanization around those stations, calling it the urban heat island effect. Also, attribution skeptics and deniers who accept the global warming trend but see natural causes for this. God forbid we did it with the spewing of every piece of shit gas that came out of our tailpipes, airplanes, and factories. Oh no, God forbid. A few of them even deny that the rise in atmosphere CO2 content is anthropogenic, while others argue that additional CO2 does not lend to discernible warming and that there must be other natural causes for the warming. And there are those that argue with me now, especially on YouTube. There's all these people that want to talk about the grand solar minimum. They want to talk about a lot of things. I'm not studying those things. I'm studying CO2. And this is the book I am reading now. Unprecedented. Can Civilization Survive the CO2 Crisis by David Ray Griffin. A fabulous book. And I'm learning. And all of you, I want to help you learn. I really do. So the denial, they give disputing differing points in the scientific consensus. And it's basically these. CO2 is not actually increasing. And even if it is, the increase has no impact on climate since there's no convincing evidence of warming. Are they out of their mind? That is the biggest bunch of shit I've ever heard. But of course, when I put this on YouTube, I'm going to have a lot of arguments. Even if there is warming, it is due to natural causes. Even if the warming cannot be explained by natural causes, the human impact is still small, and the impact of continued greenhouse gas emissions will be minor. Yep, we sure saw that with Harvey, didn't we? We sure did see a warming ocean get picked up by that hurricane and dumped on Houston, didn't we? Nothing to worry about there. Even if current and future projected human effects on Earth's climate are not negligible, the changes are going to be good for us. And this one, I'm going to talk about. Whether or not the changes are going to be good for us, humans are very adept at adapting to changes. Besides, it's too late to do anything about it, and or a technical fix is bound to come along when we really need it. My God, you know, George Monbiot, who writes for The Guardian a lot, he said this is such a form of denialism. In this context, it has been defined by Chris and Mark Hufnagel as the use of rhetorical devices to give the appearance of legitimate debate when there is none, an approach that has the ultimate goal of rejecting a proposition on which a scientific consensus exists. This process characteristically uses many of the tactics. Fake experts. Now, those are those people that I have talked about, those planet killers, those people that are ethically and morally challenged because they take money from the fossil fuel industry. These are individuals at odds with established knowledge and at the same time marginalizing or denigrating published topic experts, like the manufactured doubt over smoking and health. Makes me sick. Selectivity such as cherry picking, atypical, or even obsolete papers in the same way that the MMR vaccine controversy was based on one paper. And examples include discredited ideas of the medieval warm period, unworkable demands of research, claiming that any uncertainty invalidates the field, or exaggerating uncertainty while rejecting probabilities and mathematical models. I'm going to tell you that I can't even go on with that one because it gets me angry. And I do want to talk about one more thing. And that was, well, I'm going to talk about a couple of things, but right now I'm going to talk about this climate gate. And I will say in 2009, I think it was a bunch of crap and they were set up. The Pennsylvania State University released an inquiry report that investigated any climate gate emails involving Dr. Michael Mann, a professor of Penn State's Department of Meteorology. They found that there exists no credible evidence that Dr. Mann had or ever has engaged in or participated in directly or indirectly any actions with an intent to suppress or falsify data. So what happened was, there were some emails. And again, with the emails, a manufactured debacle, really. In July 2010, the University of East Anglia published the Independent Climate Change Email Review Report. They examined the emails to assess whether manipulation or suppression of the data occurred and conclude that we find that their rigor and honesty as scientists are not in doubt. But there was a witch hunt, and there continues to be a witch hunt. And I'm sure James Hansen can tell you. In 2011, the Department of Commerce Inspector General conducted an independent review of emails and found no evidence in the CRU emails that the NOAA inappropriately manipulated the data. So basically, it was a bunch of crap. And there is a lot on that. It was a bunch of crap. And I'm going to talk about something. Scientists there is a witch hunt. And there's a witch hunt by this administration now because they want to squelch the discussion. They don't want us to think that our activity, that what has happened in the industrialized era and the CO2 crisis, which does exist, is real. For example, these scientists, they will say, and many of them will say, oh my God, CO2 is so good it's so good for the plants. Now, while technically that is not completely wrong, right? For CO2 to be good for plants, it cannot be from vehicle emissions. It cannot be from aircraft emissions. In a greenhouse, when CO2 is injected, it is a scientific method that might be taken from methane or butane, might be, to inject CO2 into a greenhouse to give a response of plants flourishing or growing. But that is not what's happening in the atmosphere. And these scientists lie by omission because they do not tell you this. They make the people out there that are not smart, that don't know, they make them think that, oh my God, the emissions from my tailpipe are just fine. And it's okay to continue going like this, when it is absolutely not, and they are liars. And I've watched them lie. And I have refuted. I have refuted it myself. I have refuted it myself, reading articles about the CO2 in greenhouses and how farmers will use it. And it is certainly not the way that these guys are talking about it. So the next book I want to show you, this is really good. Unprecedented Climate Mobilization. Okay? This one, I think it's a short one. You guys should get it. We have to mobilize. We have to mobilize because we don't have much time. We have seen Harvey, Irma, Maria. We have seen destruction. I am not going to go into manufactured hurricanes. I'm going in to talk about, and I do talk about the way that climate change and the greenhouse gases and the CO2 has warmed the oceans, has changed the jet stream. It is clear and apparent science if you pick up a book like this and you do your research. And don't jump on to the next conspiracy theory. And I'm not putting any of you down because it's okay to wonder. It's okay to want to know. It's okay because I do it all the time. But I worked in research for 20 years. We had grants from NASA. We had scientists that got grants from the National Institute of Health and the National Science Foundation, and none of them were nefarious. None of them were for reasons that were going to do things to us or our environment to kill us. My scientists were wonderful. I even did H-1B visas to bring scientists over from different countries. Different countries. And something's on my screen. I don't know if it's, I don't think it's in the way. I'm just canceling it. But I even, you know, and here, I'll give you one little story. Back in the day, and I think it was back in maybe, I don't know, 1999 or 2000, we had a researcher from Pakistan. And his wife was also in school here, and she was studying to be a doctor of diabetes. I went to their house for dinner with my daughter several times. Dr. Siddiqui used to leave on Fridays to go to Friday prayer. I wanted to learn about that, and I did. I went to their house. They were lovely to me. But you know, in the post-9/11 world, people would have said to me, how could you go to those terrorist houses? They're from terrorist countries. No, they were scientists. It just so happened they came over because the head of the toxicology and chemistry department could get them cheaper. Just as bright and just as brilliant as our own scientists. But the H-1B visa, and very often the F visa, which was a visitor, the J2 visa, the J1 visa, which was the visitor's visa. I used to get J1 visas, and I bring over scientists from different countries to do projects on our campus. None of these projects were talking about anything ugly. None of these projects were reporting to the government ways that we were going to pollute the Great Lakes. None of them. We were studying the Great Lakes. Dr. Jill Singer, she went to Washington several times on her project with NASA. She was a geologist. So where I come from, and in my frame of reference, it's what I know. These deniers would be hilarious if they weren't so dangerous. Yeah, Bob. I agree with you, Bob. It is dangerous. And as I asked in my last live stream, I asked, what do you think? Who do you think? What name should we call these people? Because I cannot stand climate deniers, quite frankly. I really hate it. What I'd like to say, I would love to say murderers, planet killers, fossil fuel industry tools. And when people ask me why I don't go onto Geoengineering Watch, it's because of this. Because I follow science that I can read results of experiments. I am not going to put any of you down for doing what you do. Again, I'm going to say that again, but I'm not going to interview Dane, and I'm not going to go there because that is not where my interests lie. An environmental coffee house, we rely on science. And while I respect what Dane is doing, I just cannot get around hurricane manipulation. I don't understand, but if anybody can answer me as to why this is going on, is it the depopulation agenda? I can't talk to this. And somebody on YouTube asked me, and they got angry with me because I don't want to do it. And I said, how can I do something that I don't have enough information on? So I am supposed to come on and talk about something that I know nothing about and what? Look like an idiot? No, I'm talking about what I'm studying and I'm talking about what I'm learning. But I also, again, I don't want to be told by people what I should be doing. The only people that can talk to me about that are on my team. Basically, that's it. And this rant has been coming for a while. Now, Paul says Lake Erie's having major algae problems right now. Yes, and those are the kinds of things that the scientists at my university are studying. I worked and took care of the employees from the Great Lakes Center. Those are the things that I'm interested in. Environmental coffee house. We are interested in fracking. We are interested in anti-pipeline movements. We are interested in what is tangible and what we can get results from. That's it. It's so easy and simple. And if you want to go to Geoengineering Watch, go. And there are other people that are covering it much better than I ever could. And I respect all of those people. That's the thing. There's nobody I don't respect. I just can't do it. Hi, Diane. And thank you for saying this. It's my passion. It's how I feel. But when you work in research as long as I did, it's very hard for me to see such, nefarious things. Now, I read all about that project in the 40s. I know that we have been doing chemical engineerings forever. I know that we put Agent Orange in Vietnam. But I don't know about clouds, which is the next thing I'm going to study. And I don't have any evidence that there are airplanes with retrofitted to spew out chemicals. I don't have the evidence. But what I would like to do is test my soil to see. And if I find strontium or find any of those chemicals in my own soil, well, then maybe I will go into it. But for now, I won't. And there are plenty of issues. Helen, you are so right. There are plenty of issues to be covered and people do their thing. And that is what I'm doing. I cannot take the whole cadre under the environmental umbrella and do it. And I guess I am ranting and I'm frustrated because all of this stuff has been going on and it has been getting to me for a while now. And I knew you guys would understand me. I knew it because you've been with me. And you respect my work. And to me, that is really important. Now, when I put this up on YouTube, it might be a different story, might be a different audience. But you know what? For everyone that challenges me, I ask them questions. And I ask them, okay, what do you got for me? But if they have something for me, that's one thing. But I don't expect them to tell me that I'm a tool of the deep state because I don't want to talk about their agenda. Get your own freaking channel. I have been told, oh, you're just part of the problem. No, I'm not part of the problem. I'm trying to solve the problem in any way I can, my way. End of it. And I tell people, if you do not like it, leave the channel. But why would you leave me? I'm teaching you. I love you. Trevor says, I understand it, Sandy, and man, I wish I did not. Trevor, I just respect you immensely for understanding. I respect you immensely for everything you're doing. Kim says, but we're crazy, you know? No, you're not. See, that's the thing. I will never, ever call any of my peers, my friends, crazy. I will never put you down for who you want to follow, who you read, or what you believe. Who am I to do that? I don't have a God complex. And I love all of you. And when you come up with things that you can give me, come up with really hard science. Give me the articles. Give me the peer review. I look at it. I love peer-reviewed science. I wrote my own papers. They were peer-reviewed way back in the day. Lisa says, when I was placing camping reservations, I had to alert people about algae blooms and not to get the water on them or their pets. Yeah, and in the Great Lakes, we do have that problem. We also have the problem of those, oh my God, what are they called? They came in on the boats, like snails, leeches. We were working on that at the Great Lakes Center also to try to eradicate those, and I just don't have the name of them on the top of my head. Kim says, you do have a good soul. I knew that the first time. And I'm not here for, I'll tell you, I love you, Kim, but I am not here for reinforcement of what a great person I am. I'm not. I am here because I have a voice I found. Thanks to Real Progressives. I found a voice. And I'm learning and reading every day. I am so disabled. You have no idea, guys. Sitting here, I have my back brace on. I can't even sit. I can't cook a meal for more than 10 minutes standing at the goddamn counter because I heard I'm in chronic pain. But if it's the last thing I do, I am going to learn about global warming and I'm going to learn about the environment. And I'm not going to stop till I'm 10 feet under or till I'm up or till I can't do it anymore. Zebra mussels. You're right, Helen. Zebra mussels in the Great Lakes. They are a problem. And barnacles. They were brought in from overseas, and they are choking out some of our indigenous fish. It is a problem, and we've been working on it for years. So tonight, I want to thank you for coming. I hope you share this. I want everyone to realize that I learned from all of you. I'm not calling anyone names. I'm just not going to do it. That's me. That's me. My nephew's a pilot. My father was a private pilot for 60 years, and my brother's a private pilot. They can't tell me that they've seen anything in the air. My nephew has flown coast to coast to coast. He was on that television show, Flying Wild Alaska. He can't tell me about what he's seen because he hasn't seen it. So until I get that in my hands, and I can discuss all of those things. I can discuss Henry Kissinger. I can discuss the Iran-Contra scandals. I can discuss all of the dirty tricks that our military has played upon the world all my life. But I can't discuss something I don't know. So for tonight, guys, thank you. And I want to say thank you, Rebecca, for being here. And Bob says in Naomi's book, this changes everything. She wrote an entire chapter on geoengineering, dimming the sun. She attended a 3-day retreat. Some of the proposals were a little frightening. And I actually thought about using that chapter. But you know something? I care enough about the people that watch me not to offend anybody either. I don't want to because I really love y'all. So why would I want to offend you? You got to read it for yourself. And another person, read Derek Jensen. Derek Jensen has written 22 books on our environment and what we are doing to our environment. I implore you to read Derek Jensen. He has a channel too, Deep Green Resistance. He does interviews. He's amazing. And I'm trying to get Derek for our channel to interview him. I think you'll love him. And hi, Splat. Oh, Splat, one of my favorites, has joined. So everybody, thank you very much. We have a good night. Have a good night the rest of the night. And understand me. Understand where I come from. But if you have some hard data, I'll take it. Peace. Good night, guys.